Okay, welcome everybody. It's so lovely to have you all here today. For those who don't know, we are Nick's Horror Collective. We are a community of women horror creators who are working to celebrate and elevate original women-led horror content and the women who create it. And we are so pleased to be joined today by Tara L. Craig and Jennifer Harrington. I'm Kelly Krause, and I'm joined by my fantabulous co-host, Jenna Payne. We are both founding members of NYX. Just a couple housekeeping rules before we properly introduce Tara and Jen. So you all should be muted. If you are not Tara or Jen, please keep yourselves muted for the duration of the conversation. We will open up the floor to audience Q&As in about the last 15 minutes or so of the conversation. And I believe that's it. So let's introduce our fabulous guest today. So Tara L. Craig is the founder and president of the Squid Farm, a production company that focuses on the creation of genre motion pictures, TV series, and commercials. Under the Squid Farm banner, Tara recently produced feature comedy Guest House, which ranked at #1 on Amazon Prime in September 2020, and sci-fi thriller 3022, which ranked in the top 10 on Netflix in March 2020. Squid Farm celebrated its first production with the release of Shudder original Shook, a psychological horror feature that centers on a social media personality who becomes the target of an online terror campaign, and which we will be discussing today, of course. Prior to launching Squid Farm, Tara produced comedies Mad Families, No Way Jose, the 2013 Tribeca film Trust Me, Balls to the Wall, and April Fool's Day. She also served as executive producer on comedy feature Friendsgiving. Now for Jen, writer-director Jennifer Harrington has spent more than a decade creating features, shorts, television, music videos, and web content. In addition to her recent script sale to Sony Pictures and Jake Kasdan's company, The Detective Agency, Jen served as both co-executive producer and a director for Apple TV Plus's 2020 docuseries, Dear. Her second feature film is Shudder original Shook, which she wrote and directed for Squid Farm Productions. Previously, Jen wrote and directed the feature film Housekeeping, released by Lionsgate Entertainment and After Dark Films in 2015. As an editor, she cut Gaga 5'2" for Netflix, which premiered at TIFF 2017, the Emmy-nominated feature documentary Banksy Does New York for HBO, and numerous other narrative and documentary features. Welcome, Tara and Jen.
Yeah, greetings. We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, we're excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, ladies, shall we? We feel like you both are living the dream of many other women filmmakers. You helmed a project that's majority women-led, both in front of and behind the camera, and got distributed on a major streaming platform. Thank you, Shudder. How did you guys pull together your cast and crew, and did you go in with the intention of hiring more women, or is that how it worked
out? I guess I can jump in. Yeah, I mean, when Squid Farm started in 2017, our mandate was to have more diverse filmmakers, particularly females. Obviously, we have everyone, but we were hoping to get female-led, particularly horror films and genre films, which was so great that we found Jen Harrington, who fit perfectly with that. So, and then in terms of in front of the camera and behind the camera, yeah, we were definitely trying to be diverse, have more females, but most importantly, just have a good team that I think, they're hard movies to make, and so the team that was on board for what we were doing, and it was, I mean, Jen can speak to that. I thought it was a really fun shoot. It was hard, but it was really fun. So, and that was actually a nice little, she said she's focusing more on the hard, but I think it was fun. It was more fun for me maybe, but I think it was a nice little family, I thought. I may be wrong.
We got along great. It wasn't that. It was just like like any indie production. It was like not enough time, like very, very, a lot to do and not a lot of time. But so it was hard. But like I think the crew and everybody was great. I mean, I loved working with Tara. Like, for me, it's so fun working with women because you don't have like the usual like ego stuff kind of that tends to pop up of like, well, I'm, this is my department and I'm, in charge of this. And like, you need like, this is the hierarchy. Like, I mean, we just had fun. I mean, I remember just sitting there like the week before we shot and like, I mean, it was probably one of the most stressful pre-production weeks I have ever had because so much wasn't done. And then things were like crumbling, but we were laughing the whole time. I mean, it was just, it was a blast, even though it was super stressful. And, I think that that's something that, not to say that I haven't had great working relationships with men, but it's just like a different vibe, and I really appreciated it.
Love it. So let's backtrack a little bit. So how did each of you get your start in film? Like what drew you to it? Like what have been who have been some of your mentors or, inspirations along the way?
I will start. Okay, sorry. I loved movies as a kid, like probably all of us. And I used to, I mean, I guess my biggest thing is when I was about 10, 11, 12, I would stay up like Friday nights, Saturday nights till 6 in the morning, literally watching Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street or whatever it was. I absolutely, apparently couldn't sleep ever, but I loved that. And then, went to film school, came to LA, and then as luck would have it, ended up working for Frank Mancuso, who did do the Friday the 13th and, had this horror company at the time. And so did a lot of independent, low budget, tough shows. I mean, I really, really worked for Roger Corman, kind of, they were very, if you made it through the shoot alive, it was considered, a bonus. So, but I absolutely love filmmaking. I came from a physical production background. I came up as a coordinator, then a UPM, and then a line producer, and then a producer, and so forth, and then moved into getting financing and doing development, all of that fun stuff. So, if you do also budgets of a certain level, I think you have to do everything, which gets us back to Shook because many of us were, Jim was writing and directing and editing, and we were all doing 9,000 things. And I think that's, as much as that is crazy, it's like we all know that's the gig. So it's nice to roll up our sleeves and do that.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. Uh, How did you guys, so let's get into the movie. I'm a big fan of home invasion. And I would describe this. In fact, every time I have a housewarming party, I usually have home invasion movies playing in the background. So I'm always looking for more. And you have some elements of that, and you also have some elements of like kind of a cat and mouse game happening in Shook for anyone who hasn't seen it. Are there any standouts in these subgenres that you watched while prepping this movie?
Not while prepping, just ones that, I mean, obviously there's like a very strong connection to Scream and Wes Craven's Scream. And like, I mean, I think I've seen all those movies and I know them all very well, so I didn't really need to watch them. But yeah, like Wes Craven's Scream for sure. I mean, like, I was definitely going for the opening scene, and that like sort of fun poppy vibe that Wes Craven has, that it's not just horror, but there's an element of real entertainment and fun. So I would say like the biggest draw probably comes from Scream.
Excellent. Yeah, I also feel like there's the first 20, 30 minutes is very like When a Stranger Calls.
That's what I was going to say, because I love that movie, and that was one of the ones you're doing this. The middle of that movie is very, very different, right? But it's like, but I love that movie, and I think that was another big influence we had as well.
It's a very engaging movie to be. You guys have Shook is very contained. It mostly takes place inside a house, and that first 20, 30 minutes of When a Stranger Calls is like a woman on the phone.
Jen, I want to go back to a comment you just made about having like this sort of like poppy vibe. Like for me, this is very like this is very highly stylized film. Like I loved the visual style of this. Like it definitely had that poppy vibe, and that was something that struck out to me. And actually, like you said, did make it a lot of fun. And like one of those style choices that I think have stood out to a lot of people in articles I've been reading and reviews I've been reading is this idea of using the social media inserts to kind of create this invasive claustrophobic atmosphere. And so how did you conceive that, and what was the process for developing that?
I think that like pretty early on, when we had like a working script together and you realize like how central social media is, first of all, and thematically and literally in the script, that, you know, we had to pay special attention to how we were going to portray that. And, you know, I didn't want to, I wanted to try to see if I could find a way to do it that maybe said a little bit more than just like text on a screen. And so thought about it, and I kind of went off the idea of how, you know, when you're on your laptop or your phone or engaging in social media or texting with someone, you very much are in like that world mentally, even though physically you're here, mentally you're in other world. And I wanted to find a way where you could kind of show like both of those worlds coexisting at the same time, because I think that's really kind of what a lot of us do when we're on our phones, is, you know, physically one place but mentally somewhere else. So that's kind of where I started with the idea of trying to find ways to like visually represent social media in her, like physically in her environment. So that's pretty much where I was originally thinking. I had the idea for projection, but we weren't sure if it was just going to be too difficult to do with our time frame. But working with the DP, who is Rich Wong, who's super amazing, he was really excited about the idea. We decided to try to figure it out. So, you know, most of those effects were all done, you know, live in camera during production, and I think it does help give it that you know, real world feel, that like as if it's in the room, that I was kind of going for.
Yeah, it really shows. It was a very creative way to bring that into her like headspace.
Yeah. Jen and I are both big fans of practical effects, so.
Oh, yes. Jen, how do your roles as director and editor reinforce each other? And that was also, I imagine, the social media inserts was like gonna be more difficult in the edit room, but I think very worth it in the end, right?
I think that, like, you know, again, it the editing aspect is really came into play directing, because we had such a short shoot, knowing exactly what we needed to get and not anything else. So, you know, a lot of times, you know, when we were shooting, be like, oh, we only need the first half of this shot because I'm going to cut away before we even get to the end of this anyway, so we can move on. And, you know, which I think drove some people crazy, because unless they could see inside my head, it was very like, but wait, they got all messed up at the end. It's like, I'm like, but I don't need it. And that was the way we were able to move so quickly. So for me, that was like the biggest plus of having that background, is I kind of already had in my mind while I was shooting how I was going to cut it together. And similarly with the social media stuff, I mean, I was pretty clear of how I was going to put that together before we even shot, which helped, because I think we were super efficient when we were shooting.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was great. I worked with several writer, director slash editors, and it, not that everyone can do that. Obviously, it's a very unique skill set, but it is very great, because, like Jim was saying, there's so many times I'm sitting behind monitor and someone's shooting someone, like, you're never going to use that. You're never going to use them walking all the way. But, you know, you let the director do what they must do. We didn't do that with Jen. She's like, boom, boom, boom. And everyone's like, whoa, wait, you want to get this? And we're like, no. And, you know, I trusted her because she was such a good editor and obviously such a good writer. And I knew that she would, you know, have it, and she did. And so it really helped us with such a tiny, tight shoot. It was a very life-saving to do that.
All right.
Love it. So let's talk Shudder a bit. Landing a feature at Shudder is a pretty big freaking deal. So congratulations to both of you ladies on that. Can you take us through the distribution process and the marketing process with Shudder? And was there anything that you found particularly challenging or unexpected, and how did you adjust to that?
Well, this was my first time working with Shudder. I've worked with a lot of different distributors, a lot, you know, primarily studios, more so than streamers. And this was the first time I'd worked with them, and it was a really, really great experience, to the point where I even like sent them, which I really do, I'm so impressed with you guys email, because I think so many of us filmmakers, particularly as producers, quite honestly, get cut out of the marketing aspect quite a lot, where I don't want to name names, but I had another comedy come out recently. Things would be coming out, and the other producer would text me and email me. He's like, "Did you know this was happening?" I'm like, "Nope." And like there was just all this stuff, and it was like, no, not that it was bad, but it was like we were just so left out of the loop, which is honestly, I think, much more common. And so this time, Shudder was very inclusive. We had multiple phone calls. You know, they were setting up the media list. They were very. I thought it was a great experience. So in terms of distribution process, it was great. They had actually weirdly approached us. We were in post-production, and the rest is history. We sent them a screener, and they liked it, and they bought it. So that was great.
It's always nice to find a home for your feature. That sort of leads into, Tara, how did Squid Farm Productions come about, and like what was the financing like on this movie?
What financing? No, let's see. Well, it's actually funny. I was thinking about this morning with Jen. So the Squid Farm started because, multiple, like this sounds kind of funny, but I think when we started the Squid Farm, I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, which is a perfect time to start a company, obviously. But part of it was wanting to have a lot more ownership over the projects that I did. And instead of just being, you know, a producer for hire, which is fine, but I wanted to do a lot more genre, a lot more, specifically a lot more horror, but also with more diverse filmmakers and stories that I wanted to tell. So we started the company. We had a little bit of seed financing. And Jim will love this. So I had a little bit of money, and I mean a little bit of money, to make Shook, which was originally called something else. And so we started down this process. So, and we wanted to film it so fast that I think I said you have like 6 days to write the script or something stupid.
I had a week to write the script.
I underestimated.
You're so cruel.
And then of course the money fell out. I'm like, just kidding, we're not shooting right now. She's like, dang. But what they did start was this process of, you know, revising the script, and as we continue to go back and get that money, and we did this whole casting process, which is kind of funny because certain people that ended up in the cast, we had literally auditioned the year before, which is kind of, you know, we remembered them from that. Had a great casting director, Leslie Wolf, who found us some fine, great people, and you know, they came on board a year later. But so that's how it started, because I said, I've got this much money, let's make a movie, and then we were shoving the movie into that. Which gets us back to that like that babysitter subgenre of horror, which is the, you know, the girl in the house kind of thing. So, which is a nice, efficient thing to do. So, and if you're going to have a low budget, so that's how we started. And then we got very, very busy. It was very fortunate. We, you know, did the comedy Guest House that came out in Lionsgate. We did the sci-fi movie 3022, which was another Fast and Furious kind of movie, but super fun because of all the challenges in terms of the visual effects. It was a movie that took place in space, and I was like, this is ridiculous, but it actually, I thought, was another great director, John Seuss, came out really well. Did a stand-up special, did a bunch of commercials, and we just kept kind of snowballing and doing great. And then the pandemic hit, and so we had a lot of things in post, and so we delivered them. So, but that's how we came about.
Yay!
So, if we may ask, what exactly was the budget for Shook? I mean, we knew it was low budget, but it sounds like you were having to exercise a lot of creativity to work around that.
Yeah, it was under 10 million.
It looks great. It looks,
yeah,
again, like it has such a.
Yeah, we shot in 12 days initially, I think, and then we had some pickups for, like, we had a whole day devoted to inserts. We did some pickup shoots. So I think it was all said and done. I think it was 15 days, but there was 12 days where it was just like
photography was 12 days.
Yeah, it was 12, and like, and that,
12 days.
Yeah, and our crew was literally, God bless Richard Wong, but like he had a DP, or he was a DP, and then he had a gaffer and a key grip, and that was it. And it was like, and then he had his camera crew. But we were like, that's the smallest G&E crew I've ever had in my life. So, you know, but we were all bunkered down in this house of, like, you know, our little dysfunctional family, and we made it work. And I think everyone was on board for what we were doing. Everyone was a really good team player, and they knew it was super cheap, and that me and the production supervisor were setting up the craft service table, and, you know, they were like, we get it. So, it was a really great team. So it was hard, but it was definitely fun. Again, Jen might argue with me, but
I mean, you guys
fun, but it was hard and fun. And yes. I'm not sure which one I would say was a little bit more than the other.
I enjoyed myself. I don't know, but
fair enough. Can you guys tell us a little bit, maybe without too many spoilers, but a little bit about the stunts and the special effects that you guys did? Like, do you guys have a favorite or one that was the hardest? Because I know those can be, especially on a tight schedule, tough to get in the can.
I mean, we had a really great, like, Tara hooked us up with a really great makeup special effects guy, Hugo Lassenor. Am I saying his last name right?
Yeah, so he's done like Bone Tomahawk and I think he did Annabelle. Like, he's done some huge shows.
Mm.
So that he was a great ad because I couldn't, he's a friend and I couldn't normally afford him, but he loved our project and came on board, which is great.
And he was so just really great to work with, and was always willing to come up with like smart, easy ideas that would still look great. Like, and we, with him, I'd say obviously like the effect that came out the best is the first kill in the movie, which is
Very
also
fun.
featured in the trailer. And he really helped us get that right. And I mean, it's all mostly practical with just a little cleanup and visual effects. And that was all him in helping us figure out how to do that. I would say one of the toughest. I mean, we had one day where the stunt coordinator was there, so we had to do like all of our stunts in one day. So we had to do the fight. There was a fight, but we also had to have her jump off the balcony, and that just got a little stressful because like once he got there and looked at the situation, and like there's a railing for the staircase, and he's like, we can't have that there. It's too close to where she's gonna fall. She could hit that, but it was like welded to the stairs. And so like the art director had to like sit there and like essentially like with I don't know, like a blowtorch or something. I mean, he had some crazy tool and like cut the iron railing off of this lovely man's house so that we could hurry up and shoot it. So that was a little stressful, but I was really happy with how that came out.
Yeah, it was great.
We had, because of the budget, we did, and I've done this before on a lot of these, we would have, I'm like, you have one day for stunts, one day for animals, one day for Steadicam, which is not great, but it does work in the constraints of you're pretty much in one location, so we could do that. So, God bless Jim and Rich, they made it work, and Dan Schultz, our AD, but one of the great things I was going to say back about Hugo is he actually stole a corpse for us because we couldn't afford a corpse and we needed one at one point, and they knew somebody on a show at Paramount, and I still to this day I got to figure out what show it was, but they went and stole a corpse and took it off law, and that was our, if you see the movie, you know who that is, but it's very funny because like we couldn't afford one, which is sad.
Nice.
Friends in high places. You see, it's all about who you know. I love it. So as women working in the genre space, like what has been your experience, starting projects, breaking into projects, getting hired for projects, or having your voice heard?
It's hard. I came out of film undergrad and film grad school, both a long time ago, and was like really ready to hit the ground running, and I had a horror script that I was super excited about, and it was really, really difficult to get anybody to care or pay attention or even take a look at the script. And meanwhile I had 6-figure student loan debt. And so I took on, I started working as an editor just to, make it, and that slowly became my career. And, I kept writing and kept trying to get projects out that whole, like, for years while I was doing that, but it was still just super difficult to get anybody to care. And finally I hit a point where I was just like, I don't know, I kind of like hit my limit, and I was like, screw it. And I went and I bought a Canon 60D and a Zoom recorder, and I wrote a script and shot it 30 days, just like one actress, and I shot it by myself and put together the feature, and I ended up selling it to After Dark Films and Lionsgate, and I made it for like $500.
What?
And I know, don't watch it.
I mean, you sold it to Lionsgate. It can't be that bad, Jen. Come on.
Well, there's a long story. Like, also just like, because when I shot it, I was just shooting it for me as like something to put out in the world. So I wasn't like getting releases and doing all the like super important producer stuff. So when I went to go deliver the film, I had to change a bunch of stuff like last minute. And so I had to like go reshoot things, and like there was a little girl in the movie and I had to take her out. Like, so the final movie is like, I mean, it's fine, but anyway, it was a process. But then I was like, oh great, like I've done this, now things are really going to get going and things are going to change, and they did, and no one cared.
Wait,
And I sold it 2013.
wow. Okay.
And it didn't come out until 2015. They sat on it for a long time, and then none of it mattered anyway. Nobody cared. So, I mean, what it did for me though was it changed my mindset, and I realized like I had to be way more proactive about getting stuff out there, not just emailing people and saying, hey, do you mind like looking at this? So I just got way more, not aggressive, but just like really trying to get out there and meet people. And I was constantly working on new projects. And yeah, so I eventually, like, through my husband's he's a filmmaker, his producer of his first film was friends with Alessia, who she came up with the story for Shook, and I sent her a script and she liked it, and then I heard from her and that was it. And then I heard from her like a year later, 6 months later, and she's like, remember that script you sent? She's like, I want you to meet Tara. And then I met Tara, and then we started making this movie. And I think this is a really long answer, but the point is that like you just like keep trying and keep throwing things out there and keep pushing, and you don't give up, and you aren't passive about it. You really are as active as you can be and try to make things and meet people and get people to read stuff. It's just like, I don't know. And so now, like, Tara helped me out and introduced me to a really awesome manager, and like that helped me get one of my scripts out there, and and it's gone from there. So I mean, very long story short, I would say I don't have like this like really neat path where it's like I did this and then this happened. It's like,
Yeah.
it's really hard.
It feels kind of Sisyphean sometimes, but Alessia is actually how we got hooked up with you guys. Thank you.
So, sorry for the audience, that this is Alessia Glidewell, who is a talented writer director in her own right, and we'll hopefully have her on Nick's one of these days.
We'd love to have her join us as well. And I totally, Jen, that resonates with me so much. My day job has been production, while I try and get my writing and directing projects off the ground, and it has been 10 years now, and I'm very ready.
Yeah, I mean, it took me longer than that. So like, I'm with you. It sucks, and you just like keep going.
Yeah. Tara,
how about you?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Oh, Tara, how about you?
Oh, in terms of how
being a woman in the industry and
especially in the genre space.
It's a really long conversation. But I mean, yeah, for me, it was kind of funny. So I came up, as I said, through physical production as a production coordinator, AD and UPM and all this, and a lot of low budget things. I will say, well, I can go on and on about what it's like to be a woman, and it's very weird that it's 2021. And I still sometimes have to have a male assistant email to have someone respond to mine sometimes, which is sad. Which is literally things that happen, and they think, oh, it's because it's a guy, and I'm like, really? But okay, that's what we need. But I do think I ended up working for a lot of like great producers and line producers who would be scrappy, old, hard drinking, sailor, tough dudes. And I was this kid, I came in like at 22 or whatever it was. And they, come from the Midwest, and in the Midwest, you there's a ditch, that he's digging, you just dig it, And so I think I worked with these crazy guys who just thought, let this kid go do it. And I did. And it was, you know, a great experience. Like, it was ridiculous. And we worked all these crazy hours, but I think more and more that they were happy to just shove every piece of work onto me. They're like, great, you do it, you do it. And as much as that was crazy, it was a crash course. I'd gone to film school, I went to NYU, but then when I was, you know, doing that, it was very informative, and it was like a great crash course in like what actual physical filmmaking, which speaks back to what Jim was saying about being proactive and just doing it. Cause I think that was part of what the impetus for Shook was. But in terms of being a female, like, it is funny. There's a lot of times I've been in meetings and like have that moment. I'm like, oh, I'm the only female here. Like, you know, that happens a lot. Or I have, we were trying to get at the time, the California Tax Incentive passed at the DGA. And we had this big luncheon with one of the assemblymen. And then we go up on the dais and they're taking photos in groups because there's so many of us. And I go up on the dais, I think there's 30 of us, maybe 30 of us. And I'm the only female. And I go, and there's all these filmmakers. And I turn to the guy next to me and I go, hey, look, I'm like Margaret Thatcher here. And he looked at me like, what? And I'm like, never mind. But it was like that. There's a lot of that where you have that moment.
They don't even know.
Yeah.
It never crosses their mind. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's been, you know, there's a lot of, it's just shocking to me to this day that there's still a lot of things going on in 2021, but there is, unfortunately. So.
Yeah. I think we have a follow-up to that. What changes have you seen in the industry, and what changes would you like to see in the industry for women?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for my part, I think there is obviously this very big mandate to get female, particularly directors, but everyone, inclusivity. What I have seen is I, for one, for years have kept a list of like my short list of people I either want to work with or have worked with, and they are literally female and diverse filmmakers. And I share that a lot, and I'm always like, and I get a lot of calls like, do you have any good DPs? I'm like, yes, check out these women. Do you have any good gaffers? Yes, check out these women. And you know, not just above the line, but also below the line. What I would like to see continue is more and more. I mean, I don't know if any of you saw the DGA diversity study came out, so technically we're trending slightly in the right direction. But it's like, you know, I've read that for 20 years, and I just think what I'd like to see is a commitment. Not just a, hey guys, we've been called out again for not doing this. We better, you know, same with African Americans and other people who are not getting opportunities. I think it's, you know, I feel like there's always this little surge of, oh, we better give people jobs, or we better give them an opportunity. Okay, we did that. Now we can go back. And I think I would like to see that not going back to that, because I literally have tracked it. I feel like it's a 3-year cycle where people pay attention and then it drops out again. And it's like, oops, guys, we only nominated men, or, you know, and then we have to go back again. So, you know, at some point, I do feel though, as much as that sounds negative, I do feel like we are, you know, if anything I was taught over the last 5 years is that you can never stop fighting for whatever your cause might be. And I think it's just a lesson that you'll have to do that until the day you die. And so if it's female filmmakers, then so be it, whatever it is. But I do think people have to continuously push forward. Otherwise, nobody else will do it for us.
Very true. And I do think our networks are like our biggest resource, and just making more friends within our own network and not with necessarily white men who just hire each other.
Well, for me, I think that the big issue continues to be, I feel like people have been pushing to hire more female directors for a long time now. And the big thing that always comes back to me is that, oh, they're all booked. And
yeah,
we wanted to hire a woman for this, but they're all booked. And like the thing that nobody seems to grasp is that, you know, somehow these men got opportunities to become experienced enough to get on this list.
yep.
So why is it that the women aren't getting the same opportunities? Yeah, all the ones that have, you know, TV directing experience are booked. And that's because not enough women are getting the opportunities to get the experience. And so I think that like everyone wants to address the issue at the level of hiring, as far as like, oh, well, you know, I totally would have hired, you know, Gail Mancuso to direct my TV comedy, but she was booked. It's like, okay, well, it starts before that. And like what really needs to be addressed way before that stage of hiring, where women need to be included in mentoring programs that actually do something, first of all, because I appreciate there's a lot of those kinds of programs out there, but I am a member of like all of them.
Mhm.
And I appreciate that they exist. They have never really done anything for me personally or anyone that I know personally as far as getting an opportunity or getting a job or getting a connection. I know they are trying, but there's something more that needs to happen
Mm-hmm.
where women are in that pipeline of getting those first shots
Yeah.
that men somehow get that women don't.
Yeah,
People get the credit without the risk.
yeah, we need to be allowed to fail as men have been allowed to fail, for one thing. And I would also say I work with a lot of female, I think I've done, I could be wrong, I think I've done like 20 plus movies with female directors, and I've done 20 plus movies with male directors. I actually should count, but I know it's pretty almost evenly split. But I will say this, I get this a lot with I've worked with a lot of first time directors, or maybe they had done like a smaller feature like Jenna done, we're doing a slightly bigger feature, or whatever it is. But this happens all the time where I'll have my female directors will be like, I've written this script and there's some action and there's some, special effects or whatever. And I go, yeah, that's probably like 5 million. Well, they're never going to let me direct my first feature at 5 million. And I stop them and I go, no man has ever said that to me. None of my male directors would ever say, well, they're not going to let me have my first movie at 5 million. Never, not once, but every female has said that to me. And I think, not trying to be down on females, but I'm like, we've got to also change our mindset about what we're quote unquote allowed to do. Because I do think that gets in our heads because we've been told for so many years what we're allowed to do. And we've got to change that as well.
Yeah.
Part of that is also being real. I will say that's also just women being realistic. I mean, it's true. I mean, I'm with you. Like, the mindset needs to change where we feel like, yeah, we can do it. But it's also being realistic that, yeah, like, your chances of a woman being a first time director getting to do a $5 million movie are like, minuscule.
Men do it all the time. Men do it. I mean, honestly, and I've worked with them.
No, men do it all the time. But, again, there's something else that needs to be addressed there of those giving women those first shots, those first opportunities that will allow them to get the experience to make them hireable. And they just don't get those shots.
No, well, I think this comes back also weirdly to like DPs. I've had this for years where people want to quote unquote hire a female DP. And then we look through our list and I compile the reels and so forth. And then everyone goes, oh, but they don't have as much experience. I'm like, well, no, of course they don't. They haven't been given as many opportunities. So yeah, I mean, which enters back into the they're given opportunities maybe on smaller things, and then they're working with very constrained budgets and much less resources. And if they can pull that off, great. But that is it's a hindrance because they're not given the same opportunities to succeed. We're almost setting them up to fail. And I agree that something needs to be addressed about that. People need to come on board with allowing us to have more opportunities.
Yeah. Would it be a contentious thing if, a woman walked into a producer's office with a $5 million budget film, knowing that that producer, had produced a $5 million feature, like first time feature for a male director, and the producer says no? Would it be worthwhile saying, well, you did it for this man, so what's the problem with me? Or with that?
For a friend.
I'm sure that would be very much like, well, that was different. He's, like X, Y, and Z, and like I felt like this, and blah blah blah. I mean, and I will say, I think you were saying too, like most men in the industry are, really lovely, progressive, liberal people who definitely believe in women's rights and women equality. They don't realize they're doing it.
Yeah.
They really don't. And it's so it's hard because it's like when they don't understand what they're doing and they don't have a sense of like, oh, like these decisions I'm making actually are biased, and I am part of the problem, even though I do believe in women and I want to support and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Until they really see that, like, that's where you're just going to keep hitting your head against the wall. And that to me is why things never progress past a certain point for women, is that like we'll get a little bit, some women will get more opportunities, but like the problem is the people who need to change don't understand that they need to like they don't understand that they're actually part of this whole system that keeps women out. So
yeah, I think we all have work to do, and even I've had to do work, right, around things that I was taught growing up and kind of unlearning bad bad automatic thoughts and ideas and stuff like that. But like if it's not in your face every day, it's really easy to just live above it. We have time for one more of our questions, Kelly, and then maybe we'll open it up. So if anyone has some questions they want to add to the chat, get on it. What are you both working on upcoming, and do you have any dream projects that you want to like put into the ether?
Go ahead.
I hate going first. Well, I sold a script last year to Sony, and we've finished the rewrites on that. So there should be hopefully some announcements on that soon that are exciting. And in the meantime, I'm working on another spec script that really just for me, and hopefully somebody will like it too. And I would say I have two dream projects that Tara has both of them. And anytime we want to make them, I'm here.
No pressure.
No pressure, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just two other scripts that I have that I love dearly, and
Are they genre?
One is like an action comedy, and the other one is just weird.
Weird gaps.
There, yeah.
But I wouldn't say either of them are horror. I have some horror projects. I have a few horror scripts, but it's like my writing in general has started to progress more towards comedy, and so it's like now it's like I write more comedy with maybe some horror elements instead of horror with comedy elements. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, for my part, I have, it's funny. So I usually do over the last 20-something years, I kind of average between 3 and 4 movies a year, depending on the year. Last year, obviously I didn't shoot anything. And now I have this huge backlog of all these things that we were going to shoot last year. But, we were blessed with getting a lot of the California tax incentives. And so we have a bunch of movies that are going to start flying into production this summer. We have a movie called All Fall Down with Meredith Berg, who's written it, and it'll be her first feature film directing. Which is a thriller. It's really fantastic, fun. She's a great writer. She sold a lot of scripts, but so she'll be directing that. And then I have another movie with Scott Mealom, who did Leatherface and Mother's Day and Tension with Darren Bousman and all that. This will be his first feature film directing. We've got cast for that now. Another kind of Assassination Nation meets Natural Born Killer social media commentary on our political, another movie. So we have a lot of things in the pipeline, and to the point where I'm like, I'm going to see how I'm going to do all these at once, because usually I'm pretty there all the time. But that's our plan, and I'm actually feeling very positive about, for the first time in a long time, about the way the vaccinations are going and the fact that production, it's not going to be open season, but I do think we will start to start tracking forward, and there's going to be a surge of, shooting, which I, really looking forward to, because I miss being on set. So, but most of mine, Jen knows, most of mine tend to be horror and thriller, which are my favorites. I do have some comedies. I also have like a social justice film, and I actually have a documentary in post-production with an Oscar-nominated director. So we're doing that as well. Another about women as well. Our documentaries tend to lean towards gender bias. So we've been busy, and hopefully we'll actually be back on set very soon.
And get busier.
Exactly.
Yes. Love it. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and open up the floor to questions. We do have one in the chat box, and hopefully, people will get a little braver as we work through this first one. But it comes from Mo Moshadi. Mo, I'm going to unmute you.
Hi, sorry, I'm actually here in my shop, so I don't need to see passers-by that are going around. No, I had a question, because what I really liked about this is the influencer standpoint, because I just, as 43 years young, just got started on TikTok this year, and I'm amazed by how many people are doing really cool, number one, really cool film stuff, but how very little it takes on certain platforms to be famous. But what I do see a lot is it's very, very easy to pile on women online. It's very easy to experience vitriol very quickly. And my question is, I feel like we can all come up with a incident that we've experienced online that made us feel uncomfortable, that we felt like we needed to apologize for without even doing anything. And I'm just wondering, through this film and through the story, is there anything that was cathartic to work through for you individually with this, that the lead got to struggle with and overcome with? Because I think that's a huge, for me, that was a huge pairing with, because I was able to identify with that very quickly about things kind of turning really bad social media wise at the blink of an eye. So I think just outside of that, was there anything that you have experienced in the past that gave you a little bit more fodder for the story?
I think with the social media aspect of it, I think that what I really wanted to focus on, obviously, is how you can lose sight of your real life when you fall into this persona online and you create these relationships with other people that aren't really based on anything other than a curated version of yourself. And
Sure.
You have that curated version of yourself has formed a relationship with somebody else's curated version of themselves, and therefore, like, what is the meaning of any of these relationships at all? And so I think, for me, going into it, and my experience with social media, not as an influencer, obviously, but just as a regular user, is the idea that, these ideas of connections and relationships and friendships that you make with people online, and what do they really mean, and what actually is behind it, and how much of it are you kind of creating in your own mind? And again, I think that so many people can get wrapped up in all of that it takes priority over things that are happening in their every day-to-day life, which are definitely real, that are things that they definitely should be addressing, or relationships that may need work or attention. But it's the relationships online are so much easier because they're however you want them to be. But in the end, it's like, well, if you lean on that bond at all, I mean, it disintegrates into there's nothing there. And so I do think for me, it's the idea of you can kind of create these connections with people and then realize that it's not anything.
No, completely understood, because it really is easy for us to kind of sever. We can block and delete and we can mute, and it's really, really easy because that doesn't really involve any relationship skills.
Right.
And it's something that we wish, I'm sure, we could do in our own lives. So I think that's a really cool way to look at it. Thank you.
Great question, Mo. Would anybody else in the audience like to venture forth with a question or even a comment? No. Okay. Well, I think we have Jenna and I think have a couple more that we could throw out.
The other Jenna actually just dropped one in the chat.
Oh, perfect.
Hello.
Yay. Let's unmute Jenna. There we go.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, guys. I am Jenna. And I wanted to know, as someone looking to direct their first feature, I have a vomit draft of a script that needs a ton of work. But Tara, what do you wish that first-time directors knew, when tackling their first project? And Jen, what do you keep in mind on set, or what do you wish you'd known on your first project?
Great question.
So for me, I would say, and I work with a lot of first-time directors. I would say, again, I don't have to count, but I would say if I've worked with 50 directors, at least 50 directors, I would say 38 were, first-timers, just kind of the world I live in. So I think the biggest things are just flexibility. I know it sounds funny. There's three things. I think flexibility is a really key thing, because even with Jen's movie, is every things were constantly falling apart, and then we'd fix them, and then they fall apart, and then they fix them, and like, and that's just the way it goes. And that is just filmmaking in general, but it's especially filmmaking in general. If you're doing something of a certain budget, if you have limited resources, if it is, you know, tighter or whatever it is, I think that's a big thing. So just kind of going with the flow, and realizing too, and that sounds like a funny way to say it, but not operating in fear, because I had one director who I love and I worked with quite a bit, but he would panic and then be like, we have to do this, what this agent said, because whatever. And I'm like, no, we don't. It's like, you know, you just everyone take a minute. It's not the end of the world. It's going to be fine. And so being able to not like give into your own fear, as well as, you know, choosing your own battles is a really, really, you know, I worked with Penelope Sears years ago, and she's a friend of mine, and she's a really great director. And one of the things and I worked quite a bit before I worked with her, but she was so good at choosing her battles, because she was so good. If I'm like, well, we can't do this, but we can do this, she's like, great, I can do this, but I do need this. And it was the smartest, most efficient way of filmmaking I had seen, because it was, she knew exactly, again, like Jen did, she didn't need this shot, but she did need this shot. She did need this performance. No, we're going to go into overtime because she does need that, but we can pull it back over here. She was very, very decisive, which is the last thing I'll say, because, and I know this will sound funny, unless it comes to safety, I would rather have you make a decision than waffle on something forever, even if it's the wrong decision. I know that sounds really weird to say, but sometimes you just got to plow forward, and then, you know, correct if you can. If you realize that was the wrong choice, then we'll fix it, hopefully, you know. But I think decisiveness is key as well, and choosing your battles, because whenever I get a director who agrees to everything or doesn't agree to anything, I know it's going to be a disaster. It's got to be somewhere in the middle, because if they're like, yeah, I'll go with that, I'm like, oh, then you have no voice, so you're not really directing, are you? And if they push on everything, I'm like, well, now you don't even know what you need. So just being smart about it, which I know is something an obvious answer, but those are the things I always look for when working with first-time directors.
Great, thank you.
I mean, I think for me, the big thing that I learned, well, I learned a lot on this production, but like, I think for me, like, listening to your gut about people, crew, and I'm sorry.
I told you, but anyway.
No. I just, you know, and not like, you know, you want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and you want to see if you can work things out, and you want to give, you know, let's have a conversation first, and let's see if this can happen. And that's all well and good, but if you're only shooting for 12 days and you're on day 3, you know, you don't have the time to like, well, maybe we can, you know, work this out, or maybe this, you know, issue is something that like will solve over time. Like, it doesn't work. You need everybody to be on the same page right then. And you can't, that's something you have to be, you know, I don't like being like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, or like let somebody go, or, you know, anything like that. But at the same time, you should trust your gut and do it sooner rather than later, because like if you wait too long, it just gets, just so much more stuff gets messed up is all. Like, you'll still end up replacing them, but now you're even further in the hole than you would have been. So, and I think there's something to be said of being like a woman in that regard, is that I think I am more reticent to like, you know, I want to give people a chance, or, you know, like, I don't want to be mean, but
Right.
you do need to listen to your gut, and like when something's not working out, like, deal with it.
Yeah,
That's huge. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't have I obviously coming from UPMing and line producing, not to be mean, but we you know, we don't have as much, you know, you make a decision quickly and just go with it. It's business, you know. I don't want to fire people. I don't want to be cruel or anything either, but at some point you just gotta lay the axe to the root and move on, because it will poison all the rest of the branches. I'm not sure what metaphor I'm using here, but you get what I'm saying. So.
Thank you so much.
Such a good question. Nice
Yeah.
job. Okay, I do think we need to wrap, because both Tara and Jen are on a tight schedule. But ladies, if I may, I think it's always nice to try to close out on a bit of a positive note. So can you just tell us really quickly how you each are starting to see women redefine the genre space specifically?
I will say, you know, Shudder just released another movie called Lucky. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. And that I feel like that clearly is a sign of kind of things to come for women in the genre space for sure. I think that like it's written by women, starring women, directed by women, and it's ultimately about women's issues and dealing with them in the genre space, which is genre space in general is always such a great place to like deal with bigger ideas. And you know, I just think like I was very inspired by seeing that film and kind of thinking of what's to come for for all women in this space, because it looks like it looks like a good future when that movie is received so positively.
Awesome.
I will. I think for me, I think I'm not super young, but like when I started in the business, I do feel, back in the 1940s, I feel like women didn't help each other out as much. Like I felt there was very much just like there could only be so many jobs, and I think a lot of people who either have suppressed voices or a minority in the room, I do think feel that way. Like we feel like you get that one shot, there can be one female director, there can be one female whatever. I don't feel like that a lot. That's been evolving over the years, but I think a lot of us, I feel like, as much as I'm not a huge fan of social media, now there's all these little communities of horror female filmmakers, genre female filmmakers. Like we started to find each other, and it's really nice to find your people. And I think that is really helpful. And I do feel like it's becoming this nice community where we try to propel each other forward. And if I can't do this, maybe you could do this or whatever it is. That is, to me, anyway, that's changed a lot over the years, that we're trying to help each other out and being very open about, we're trying to hire female DPs, we're trying to hire, female directors, we're part of the cause. And I think that's a really nice thing that I've seen.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And of course, that's what we're trying to do here at Nix. So yay. Anyway, I think that'll close us out. This recording will be available on the Nix YouTube channel. We'll hopefully get that up ASAP and be sure to share it through our social. But I just want to say, Tara and Jen, thank you so much. Like this was such an amazing conversation, and just hearing about your experiences and insights has been so, so helpful.
Yeah, this has been great. Everybody go check out Shook if you haven't watched it already. Tell a friend, tell all your friends on social media, of course. And thanks again, everybody. Enjoy your Wednesday.
Thank you.
So much.
Everybody.
Bye.